everybody. Welcome back to this episode of the Dealership Fix It podcast. Appreciate you listening. Today's guest, she sits at the center of the power sports industry in a way that most dealers don't fully see day to day. She helps shape the conversations, the education, and the momentum that eventually shows up in our showrooms. So I'd like to welcome Cinnamon Kernes. She's the VP of Market Expansion for the MIC and the show director at the AIMExpo. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you. I've been trying to catch up with you for a while now. You're super busy running around. I see all the wonderful things that you're doing, and I do want to get into that. But let's kind of first, let's introduce everybody to Cinnamon here if they don't know who you are. Most people that do know you, you're kind of the face behind the AIMExpo and the market expansion at MIC, but let's kind of take it back to the beginning. How did motorcycles and power sports first enter your life?
Jacob, to be honest, ever since I was, that big, I just, I've been fascinated and obsessed. And I remember every time one went by on the street, I'd pop my head up and look out the window. And I can't explain what that is. A lot of people have that first ride with their dad. And my dad had an old BSA for sure. But there was always, it seems like a lot of people have that one moment that kind of defined what clicked. And I don't think I ever had that one moment. It was just always there. And it wasn't until I moved out to California and then I actually just was able to do it as a full-time of my life that I just, I don't know, it's a weird way to say that. It's just always been there and there's not a moment. It was something that was inevitable and going to be.
Yeah, yeah. So you were obviously an enthusiast to start out with. What was your first motorcycle, or the one that really is memorable for you?
So I think this was a lot of people's first motorcycle. It was a little Kawasaki Ninja, a little 250, the EX red with purple wheels. And I got it in Chicago in the middle of winter. And it was before the internet existed. And they were good enough to deliver it to my house. And I do not recommend this for anyone. I'm probably not even supposed to admit this story out loud, but I did teach myself to ride in the snow in a parking lot outside my little apartment. I stored my bike in a storage unit and I didn't know you were supposed to put them on battery tenders. So once a week I rode it around in the snow and just, again, do not do this at home. Not recommended, but it was the information I had at the time and it's what I did.
That's so
So
funny. Yeah, no battery tender, but you knew to start it up once a week just to get the kind of battery charged up and the fluids circulating a little bit. That's funny. So
I
you
know
were an
just enough to be
enthusiast.
dangerous.
Say that one more time.
I said I know just enough to be dangerous.
I think that would be a lot of people, yeah, especially motorcycling. All right. Well, in terms of your career, you didn't start in power sports, even though you're an enthusiast. You kind of came from managing large trade shows, which certainly shines in the current work that you're doing. But what pulled you into the power sports and the motorcycling industry specifically?
To be honest, it was just truly the right place at the right time. I moved out to California. I was working on medical trade shows, and the printer that we used, we actually still use him now on AIM Expo. But he walked in and he said, "Hey, I know you like motorcycles. There's this group that does these consumer shows, and they're hiring a salesperson. You might want to think about heading over there." And I did, and it was a sales position. And for those of you that know me well, I'm not a sales girl. And they said, "Well, who's in your portfolio?" And I was like, what the hell's a portfolio? I don't know. I know shows." And they said, "Okay, well, definitely not the sales role for you, but it just so happens our operations manager resigned this morning and we need to hire somebody to do these consumer shows for power sports." And I haven't looked back a day since then. I did the international motorcycle shows for almost 12 years. It taught me everything I know about this industry, about what we do, what we love. And it's been a really incredible journey.
Super cool. Sounds like a right place, right time kind of a situation.
100%.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. So you've obviously seen the industry from the outside and the inside for many years now. What do you immediately notice about the difference between our little power sports industry and the trade shows versus the other industries that you've worked in?
So I'm going to back up for 1 second because I think one of the things about my role with the Motorcycle Industry Council with AIMExpo that's a little bit different than any other role that, well, not anyone, but that a lot of people have in this industry is that um, a lot of people they just work for an OEM, they just work for a distributor, they work within one segment. And at the MIC, I have the privilege of actually getting to work with all the different segments that make up this industry. So I get to work with the distributors, I work directly with the OEMs, obviously with the dealers, and then on market expansion, I also get to work with the consumers. So to be able to look at something and truly see how all the parts and pieces connect gives me a different perspective than I think a lot of people get to have. And then the benefit of that is when you look at a lot of other industries, the trade show is just that. It's a tool for what the industry needs, and it's a singular event. And with power sports, there's no real singular events. Everything that we do interacts and intertwines and cause and effect with everything within the industry. And so when you do things that are based on passion and emotion and love and hopefully some business sense in there along the way, the relationship of how those things work together is really different, and it makes everything a lot more rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It very much showed in the last one. And just for my observation there, I've been to many of the AIM expos in prior years past as a dealer, somebody just walking around, as a exhibitor through Moto Hunt and buying the exhibit space and talking to all sorts of people. But this last one in Anaheim was a home run. And what I liked most about it was that I was walking around and everybody that I came in contact with, it was handshakes and it was hugs and it was smiles and it was, hey, great to see you again. And these were OEMs, these were dealers, these were other vendor partners that we have. And just there was this in the air ether that you can just kind of feel and sense. And we'll get into some of those details a little bit later because you put out a really good stats article on one of your emails there, and we'll get into. But it was just a really really great show. So let's talk about those tools a little bit more. You called them tools, or a tool. AIM Expo is a great one. Many people, maybe they don't understand how this can kind of fit into their business, along with the MIC too, right? How can you explain in just layman's terms how the MIC's role in plain English for people who just, I don't get it, I don't understand what it is?
So that's a great question because it is really difficult. And when you look at other associations, sometimes it's a little bit easier. So if I'll go back to medical associations, right? That's where I came from. And there's obviously a lot of legislation and things that dictate what happened in the medical field, insurance, things like that. And so you need that association for your advocacy. And a lot of people don't realize how much the government is working to impose rules and regulations and acts that are really damaging. I mean, think about land use. If we don't have a place to ride off-road vehicles, what do we do? And what happens? When you look at just there's so much that happens on the advocacy front of things that we work with and our government relations team. A lot of people don't realize we have a whole team in DC that does nothing but analyze bills, work with our congressmen. Every year we do a DC fly-in where we ask our members to join us. We set up meetings on the Hill with their local representatives to have those conversations. I mean, we go back to saying we're a $51 billion industry. And I think so many of us are just really caught up in the community of what we are that we forget the power that we bring to our nation's economy. And $51 billion is substantial. And we need, somebody needs to protect that. And that's what the MIC does. We do it in, tandem with other associations that are out there with different priorities. But so advocacy is one. And I'm sorry, I can talk about this stuff all day long. I've just, AIM Expo was launched as an independent show back in 2013. We were acquired by the MIC in 2015. And so the last 10 years of learning and absorbing everything that we do, I've become our biggest advocate. And I actually oversee membership too. So definitely I'm self-serving what we do also here in this conversation. But so when you look at the benefits, right? So advocacy is one. Research, and that's one of the things you look at AIM Expo and we talk about the tool. Have a passion-driven industry, that's great, but emotion's only gonna take you so far, and at some point, you have to make smart business decisions. And you look at the digital companies that are out there, you look at the 20 groups, these are all companies based on providing data to help you make sound business decisions. Because without that, what are your decisions based on? It cannot be emotion alone. So we have research and statistics, from consumers, from dealers, from OEMs, sales reports, statewide reports. So for us to provide that research and data so people can actually make informed decisions that are smart for their business. And then market expansion, of course, that's the other area I couldn't be more privileged to oversee. I mean, it's intimidating and humbling and one of the most rewarding things all at the same time, but to be responsible to contribute to the growth of an entire industry is a lot. It's a huge responsibility, but by combining resources, I mean, if you think about what you guys can bring to the table on your own, you know, every OEMs, distributors, everybody has these initiatives to grow business. Part of that is by growing riders, but when you can take resources and combine them collectively, your reach and your growth and your opportunity is going to just grow exponentially. So those 3 things fall under the umbrella of the MIC, and then AIMExpo is kind of that tool to talk about all those things, what it means, inspire our industry for those of us that need inspiration, which we do. And AIMExpo just kind of brings all of those together in this annual gathering.
Okay, so Ride With Us is a really important initiative that maybe not a lot of dealers talk about. What is the problem that they're trying to solve with the Ride With Us campaign?
So a couple years ago, we did a big study, and I think it's things we all knew, but we had a company come in and verify it for us, right? It's that we're not getting new riders coming in. It's that motorcycles can be viewed as unsafe. There's obviously the other opportunities of digital, gaming, that sort of thing that take new riders' attention. And so as our older riders age out, we're not backfilling the new rider funnel. And if you don't do that, I mean, eventually you're not going to have an industry. So, market expansion was designed to come up with an industry wide campaign to help create that inspiration to get people to want to ride. Because the reality is, while there are obstacles to becoming a rider, whether it's training, finances, licensing, there are obstacles for sure. But the reality is, once you're inspired enough, they're no longer obstacles, they're just steps.
Yeah, yeah. I just actually had a great conversation with Robert at the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, and he said a lot of the same things. Right, population is aging out. Younger population, maybe their attention is being distracted, we'll call it, with other things, and maybe the interest just isn't there. But one of their huge initiatives is to get new riders into the sport and get them safely trained up so that they can become long-term riders. And I think that this just complements all that very, very well. So cool. Anything to add about the Ride With Us campaign? It is coming up in spring, correct?
So it's a 12-month, 24 hours, 24/7 campaign. So Ride With Us doesn't take a season. So you'll see us, we work very closely with MSF, which is who Rob works with, Motorcycle Safety Foundation, I think you mentioned. So we work with them. So once we create that inspiration, we need to have those riders be able to go somewhere. So whether it's taking a Motorcycle Safety Foundation class, connecting with the USMCA, which is motorcycle coaches, that organization, connecting them with the USMCA coach, or again, just getting them to stop by their dealer. I mean, ultimately, we'd love to have them go to a dealership and just say, hey, what else do I need to know? And have that dealership talk about gear, training, again, tying it back to becoming a trained rider, because that is key. Um, or again, connecting with a coach. But it's just, we're 24/7 about creating that inspiration and the resources to take the next steps.
I
MSF
love it.
focuses on doing the actual training of the riding.
Yep, yep. And I think what I had in my head was the National Ride Day in May, where we're trying to go across 50 to 60 different rides throughout the nation here.
Yep.
So yeah, that's super cool. Okay,
And
cool.
we'll work with MSF on that initiative and promoting that as well, because that'll be the first of its kind. And Rob and Corey and that team are doing an incredible job getting that off the ground. It's a big
Yes,
list.
yes. Yep, that's a big one. That's a big one. Okay, well, let's kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the AIM Expo and the evolution of it, and a little bit of the 2026 recap here. So I just attended, like I said, and it felt huge. It felt bigger, a lot more energy, a lot more substance. What really changed from this year in 2026 versus the last one?
I I don't know that anything fundamentally or specifically changed. Philosophically, every year we want the show to be familiar but not the same. So we're always evolving and refining what's on the show floor. I think, obviously being in Anaheim compared to Las Vegas, you know, no matter what number of companies are based here or move away from Southern California, at the end of the day, SoCal is always going to be the heart of power sports, I think. So coming here and then being just ahead of A1, there was a reunion vibe that was on the floor that I will be hard pressed for us to deliver again. But I just think that connection with A1 was really meaningful.
For sure, and the numbers showed. And so, just kind of recapping your email here that you just put out. Uh, 500 total industry professionals, 2,800 dealers from 1,200 dealerships, over 2,800 exhibiting staff for 465 exhibitors, 639 affiliated pros, 243 media, 960 attendees to the education system, and 756 track walks at A1 from 47 states and 55 countries. From your seat, what does that growth signal about where the industry is heading?
So from a percentage perspective, it's 15% growth. And, just before the end of the year, I had sent out an email because our attendance was up 8%. And I didn't feel great about that percentage. And someone said, but Cinnamon, positive growth is positive growth, especially right now. And, I might not exactly be answering your question, but we have a lot of people that expect there to be 8 to 10,000 dealers on our show floor. And, you know, I used to work on the Dealer Expo trade show back in the day, and that show was next level. For anybody that went and remembers that show in Indianapolis, I mean, it was a different time for sure, but we don't have that number of dealers. And so, I know you're asking me what that growth means. And I know with everything that's going on, my response to that would be growth is growth, and that is positive, and we will take that over no growth at all.
For sure. Do you see it as maybe dealers are looking for new avenues in these trade shows to better their business? Do you see some confidence in the industry, or just simply wanted to try out some new products or learn something new?
I really wish that it was the last 2, the education and the new products. I think the reality is that the number one reason people come to our shows is for the networking, and that's important. We don't have any other trade shows that exist in this country that are just open to the industry as a whole, um, and I think, back in the day, I'm really gonna sound like the old lady right now, but the reality is there was an ordering season, and there was a product launch season, and we still have a buying season, so that still happens, which is why we're aligned in Q1. But the other 2 components that all kind of made this trifecta for an incredible show don't exist. And so we really do lean into the networking and the connecting with the OEMs, with leadership, with the distributors, with the aftermarket. And so we focus on quality over quantity because that's more important. And the reality is, you can have 1,000,000 people walk by your booth, but how many of those people are you really gonna talk to? So are you wasting your time having just 1,000,000 okay conversations or, you know, 600 really meaningful conversations that are gonna bring business over the next 12 months?
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, the networking was next level, and you guys definitely had a great area and a great atmosphere for that, for people just to sit down and talk, grab a cup of coffee, chat, or just move around the different space areas and just kind of collaborate on some things. One of the biggest things that I saw was the dealer evolution and dealer excellence stages, but you had them split up. And I was curious about that. Why split up the education on one side versus the other? And maybe how should dealers prioritize what they're going to choose in the session at the next expo?
So that's a great question. Um, Education is something we work really hard to understand why it's important, what's important, how to best deliver it. And, I think the reality is there's so much content, it's impossible to fit it all on one stage without giving people room to take a breath because you need
Hmm.
people to be able to have time on the show floor to get lunch. I mean, just all the things. I mean, you can't expect somebody to sit in front of a screen and presenters for 2.5 days straight. That's not going to happen. And so and the reality is every dealer needs something a little different. And so, on one stage we do more of the, thought leadership, bigger picture, economies, things like that. And then on the other one, we really want to focus on the day-to-day best practices. And the reality is dealerships, for them to prioritize, it's really just taking a look inside and saying, where do we need, where's our biggest opportunity? And in a perfect world, because usually, the people that are looking at the data and doing the strategic planning and things like that, they're not necessarily the ones managing the parts inventory. And so we've split the stages and ideally you're bringing the right people to the show that will benefit from both stages and you're dividing and conquer.
I love that. Yeah. Immediate application versus long term thinking. I like that. Okay,
Exactly.
cool. And then one thing to mention, obviously, a huge another home run during the bigger home run was the Friday night Supercross track walk. Standout moment for me. I wasn't sure really what to expect. I got the invite from you, as well as everybody else who attended did, I'm sure. And we got on a bus and we went over to the stadium, and it was just super cool. They walked us upstairs first, got a little bite to eat, which thank you for providing all that food. And then we went down to the track and we walked about half of it. Lots of pictures. It was really cool seeing it up close. Why do you think experiences like this matter beyond just it's something cool, it's something fun?
I mean, I think no matter how cool our industry is, at the end of the day, you can get stuck in the day to day of the business and it's tough. It's a tough business. And for us, so Andre Albert, who works on our team, he's, you won't see him as much, but you're going to see him more. But he always talks about untrade showing the trade show. And the reality is, as much as, um, you know, our dealers are our attendees, they're also our consumers. I mean, we're our own biggest fans and advocates. Just ask us. And, the reality is to be able to give people experiences and no, granted, taking things for granted. Um, and there were so many there were people that had tears in their eyes, people that extended their trip overseas to be able to do this track walk, and you just forget how important this is, and so it was really about celebrating our industry and giving people when they leave, they may remember some of the education, they're not gonna remember it all, and hopefully they remembered that they stopped by the Moto Hunt booth, but, I mean, if we're being honest, there's over 400 exhibitors, they might not, but they're gonna remember that track walk, and the more that we can create those experiences and give them that reason to stay in love with what we do, the better off we're all gonna be.
For sure. I'm definitely one of those guys. I didn't bring any tears to my eyes, but I'm
Come on, Jake,
emotionally
what
absent
a raw
sometimes.
tear,
But
just one?
I wish I could. Put it that way, Cinnamon. I rarely cry, not even at movies. But the point was, is that yeah, I was like, this was like a really memorable time. I even brought my wife in, and she came with me to just do that track walk, and she stayed for the next day for the actual Supercross race. But that was really a moment where I was like, oh yeah, this is fun again. And the what you said about the day-to-day stuff, I just literally had this conversation with somebody else about being in the dealership or being in your job, and it's really really cool. And like your first year that you work there, you're surrounded by all these really cool individuals, and you got all this product that you love, and you ride probably most of them. And then after a little while, it just becomes a little bit numb to it, right? It's the same thing day over day to day, and it's really cool to the outside people, but you've been working there for 10, 20, 30 years for some of these people. It's like, yeah, it's my job, you know?
And
And
it's
so having
hard. That's the other thing.
it
It's
is
hard. This industry is tough. Our our exhibitors are after our brands are tough, our dealers are tougher, and our consumers are the toughest. And so at no point does it get easier. And it's important to remember why we love this, because there are days where you're just like, why am I doing this again?
Yeah, exactly. It was a great cap. I am looking forward to see how you're gonna top that one on the next show. So,
Oof, me too.
yeah. One thing that you brought up, is the education piece. Okay, so I do want to focus on that because education, this industry, there's more of it nowadays than there used to be, but still it seems like some of it is siloed. So the trade shows and AIMExpo and others is a great way to learn something from the dealer's perspective. So just kind of in a nutshell, if I'm a general manager of a or department manager of a dealership, kind of listening to this, how should I be thinking about the next AIMExpo, not as a trip, but as a business investment?
So again, it goes back to, I think every day, I'm going to sidetrack for a minute. So people talk about New Year's resolutions, right? And they, on December 31st, maybe on like the 26th, right after Christmas, they start talking about what their New Year's resolutions are going to be. And then they all sit around on New Year's Eve and talk about what they're going to do to be better in the next year. And I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. Literally every day should be spent. What can I be doing to be better? Whether it's my business, whether it's what I can do to be better as a person, what can I do to leave this world a better place than how I found it? And so I think as GMs and as our industry, looks at why they should attend Expo, education is important, but it's really identifying what is it that you need? What is it that's going to make your business better? Because if you're not asking yourself that every day, then y- y- it's just not necessarily a recipe for success. And I think that everything, technology, communication, everything is moving so fast that you can't afford to hit pause on that thought process. And I would we've all done this, right? We all go into a dealership. Everybody has that pearl clutching dealership experience of, I walked around for 20 minutes and nobody talked to me, or I went in and they treated me like I was an idiot because I wasn't dressed right or I didn't look the part. We all have these dealership horror stories. Every single person does. And if anyone tells me that they don't, I would challenge them to really think about that. And I would just encourage people to ask themselves if that's happening in their own business as well. Because chances are we're not getting it 100% right. Because if we were, there'd probably be a different outlook to dealerships and what's happening. So all that to say, I think it's looking, the investment in AIM Expo, it's about what you need. It's about what tools can AIM Expo deliver to help you sort through what those challenges and opportunities are. And quite frankly, the one thing about our show that I love is we have so many resources, being part of the MIC, being part of market expansion, having the affiliation with, the MSF. If you don't see it or you haven't seen it at the show, we are so reachable. Let us know what it is. What can we add on? Is it a different kind of networking? We had somebody, um, it was after, I think it was after the show closed, but somebody started talking about job fairs and what are we doing? Are we doing anything for people looking for jobs or things like that? Because we don't have I'm a candidate registration category. And we know that careers in power sports and hiring talent is one of our biggest challenges. So, I took that home, and next year I can't commit 100%, but I would venture to say that you're probably going to see something related to hiring, um, directly to bringing in candidates and finding talent.
That's a
So
good
again, it
idea.
it goes back to where are the gaps, where are the opportunities, what are we all already doing to fill it, and tell us what else we can do because we can pivot.
And keeping an open mind to maybe hearing something that maybe you just weren't expecting, right? Certainly, when I got the schedule, I had to go sit down and actually kind of plan out what I wanted to see and maybe some things I was interested in. Because if you just kind of walk around, it's a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, right? There's just so much going on at all times in 3 packed days that if you're trying to hit any of these evolution or excellence stage sessions, you kind of got to pick and choose, right? So I even came with a couple of people that I work with, and it's like, okay, you go to that one, and I'll go to this one, and I want to hear this guy speak, or this vendor's presenting over here on this stage, and it was just kind of like bouncing around. And then the in between parts were visiting all of the different vendors, seeing what they had to offer, chatting with them for a little bit. And it was just really great. And one thing I want to mention too is that I've been to a lot of these shows, not only in our space in power sports, but also in automotive as well. They have a lot of trade shows like what we have with AIMExpo too. But really, the key to all this, in just my opinion for the dealers, is that it's about post show execution. So, whatever you take and whatever you learn, or whatever good idea you think is valuable to you and your business, is that you take it back with you and you try to apply some of those new principles or new ideas to you and your staff. Would you agree with that?
100%, but it goes back to that whole New Year's resolution, right? So everybody, I'm going to lose weight. I'm losing 20 pounds this year. And by the time mid-February, March rolls around, we've, moved on to eating muffins at, 10 in the morning and, butter cookies at 9 o'clock at night. And the reality is, yes, you have to execute, but it's something that you have to do all year long. I mean, growth is, um, it's not a one stop. It's a continuous journey, and you need to, again, have that open mind. And not just us. We all need to have the open mind of where can we improve, where can we do better, and then yes, actually implement, but not just implement once. It's not. It's incorporate. It's what is it? The listen but not hear. I always get that backwards. Or is it hear but not
Yep.
listen? But
Yeah.
it's you have to actually do it and make it a practice. And that's why we call like our dealer excellence stage best practices. Not because you should do it just one time. It's not a best one off. It's a best practice to incorporate into your business, to keep doing it, to keep growing. And then, next year, what's the evolution of that?
Yeah. Self improvement is just a matter of consistency in most cases. All right. So, what are some other things that dealers should do after attending a show like Game Expo?
I mean, that's kind of a broad question for sure, but I think it goes back to, really what I've said. It's, think about what you've learned, what was meaningful, what resonated, how can it plug into your dealership? And I think, the other thing is we spend a lot of time either looking inward or when we look outward, it's what are they not doing well? But I think we should be asking ourselves, what are they doing well? I mean, when you look at they always say that when there's no competition, that's when you're gonna that's the first step towards failure, when there's no competition, because you
Yeah.
stop trying to a degree. And I'm not saying our industry does that or anybody else does that, but I think the reality is, don't just look at what you're not doing well or what you could do better, but look at what others are doing really well and find that inspiration to, incorporate those practices. Um, we had a panel not this past year, but the year before, and I talk about this a lot. It's Erico Motorsports, Komodo, uh, which with Revzilla store, and then Revit, and it's in Denver. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but the three live across the street, basically in this little community all together. I mean, steps from each other. And so when you go to Revit and they don't have exactly what you need, they can suggest, you know what, maybe go across the street to Revzilla and you might find what you want there. And when you're buying your Ducati at Erico Motorsports and they don't have the exact, you know, uh, gear that you want, well, maybe go see what Revit has. And it's this community, and they've really discovered that together they're all doing better, and they're giving people a place to go hang out where the community is welcomed. It's, this neighborhood. And I love that business model because I really do think in the bigger picture, we're so competitive in this industry and in this sport. I mean, I don't know how do you ride? I should ask you. You ride, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Right. So you know how it is when you ride with your friends, like you always want to go the fastest, you want to be the best when you race, obviously that's, what you do. But when you think about the fact that when we ride, we also like to ride in a group, if you apply that principle to business as a whole, I really do think that collaboration is key in a lot of what we do. And, to figure that out and where you can reach out within your community and with other businesses nearby to figure out how you can shore up each other's, I'm going to say weaknesses. That's not necessarily the right word, but, you know, fill in gaps that each other doesn't have. You're going to create a better landscape and environment for your end user, the consumer, and you're going to give them a reason to want to come and hang out.
You're so right. You're so right. Yes, on Saturday, I just dropped my bike off at the local Harley dealer here to get a little service work done, and I didn't even realize it. But as soon as I pull up, that there's this giant event going on, and they had the food vendors, and they had a bike show out front, and obviously tons of bikes from the people visiting. And they had somebody getting married out on the back lot, which was kind of an interesting thing to watch. But yeah, I mean, it was just a buzz, right? And it was that community sense of feel. Everybody's wearing their jackets and wearing their logos and stuff, we'll call it. And then just everybody's just kind of like the same part of the community. Where we're going next? What are we going to do? Out here in Arizona, the weather is beautiful right now for riding, much like Southern California. So this is kind of the season to be in that kind of rotation right now with all these different community events going on. But I love that story that you told about the dealers in Colorado. Outside of a small community like that, where they all kind of figure it out themselves amongst each others, which is what it sounds like. How can dealerships better support the industry wide growth and not just protect their own four walls?
Another good question. I think that's something that we ask ourselves every day, and I don't think there's a silver bullet. There's not necessarily an easy answer to that. I think, one, they have to be willing to want to continue to evolve, whether it's with consumer buyer trends, if it's welcoming new riders. I When you hear dealers talk about their biggest challenges, it's door swings, and it's new door swings, the new customer. It's not, you know, your base of loyal customers, they exist because they're loyal. And they certainly require work and care and maintenance. But I think a lot of dealers really struggle with how to figure out the new door swings. And I think it's looking at things like Ride With Us, and how do you bring in a community wide message to create that inspiration. And again, look at the experience. I encourage dealers, find somebody that doesn't ride. We all have friends that don't ride, that doesn't necessarily know your business, maybe hasn't even ever been in your dealership, and have them stop in and do, the old Pied Piper days where you had the secret shoppers and they came in and told you what that experience was. And I would bet there's a lot of dealers that would be really surprised at those answers, because I know we all think we're doing it right, but if we were, we wouldn't have the need for a lot of the things and conversations that we have.
I love that. Yeah. So let's kind of get towards the end of our conversation here. Something that I always like to ask is a looking forward statement. And I've heard a lot of different perspectives over the years on where we think this is all going. But Cinnamon, you have a unique seat at the table here with a perspective on just everyone involved. It seems like OEMs, suppliers, dealers, professionals, media, everything, MIC, all the groups, right? When you look ahead 5, 10, 20 years, where do you see the industry going and what excites you about it the most?
I'm not pausing for dramatic effect, I promise you that. That's a really hard question to answer. There are definitely people that will tell you that in 15 years, we might not have an industry. Um, I think the reality is we need to um, nurture our industry for sure and work to safeguard it. But I don't want to say we're going to be in the same place, because that's obviously not correct. But I think our industry is always going to be filled with people that are beyond passionate about who we are and what we do. I think we're always going to have people that want to figure out ways to undermine and undo our industry. And I think we will continue to be filled with people that will fight till the death, or at least until they have nothing left to give, to make sure that we're successful, that we are making people happy, that we're delivering smiles, that we're doing it as safe as we possibly can, um, and the best way that we can do it.
Wow. So that's interesting that you went that route there, almost like this is something that we need to protect, right? It's almost a delicate thing that could very easily dissolve into nothing if we're not careful about how we're participating in it and protecting it and obviously trying to grow it.
I'm not gonna say easily, because you look at some of the names that live in this industry, but for sure it's something that needs to be protected. I mean, again, you look at there's certain groups out there that don't love the four-wheel side of things. You look at land closures and things like that, and I think the reason I say that is because I do have insights into the advocacy side of things,
Yeah.
and, you know, as much as we want our industry to succeed, again, there are people out there that don't want it to, and so our industry needs protecting for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was the perfect way to close this out. I am definitely with the mentality of this needs to be something that we hold very close to the chest, and we're out there constantly pushing and pushing and pushing. And yeah, it's something that I'm passionate about too. I can hear it in your voice that you are also. So, Cinnamon, let's kind of close this out. So, you don't just run events. Obviously, you help build the environment in this space that allows dealerships and brands and riders to succeed together. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of break this down for our audience. Let's talk about the next AIM Expo. We're moving it to Orlando, Florida in 2027.
We are.
You're definitely supposed to be bringing some people with you. Bring a manager, bring a department lead with you. This is not just for the general managers. And I challenge everybody who is coming to the next one, because I'm assuming that you're going to sign up for it and go. So take three, uh, take three excellence stage takeaways from you that you can execute within 30 days. And then obviously plug into the MIC initiatives locally and with Cinnamon. Cinnamon, how can people get a hold of you? How can they reach out if they need more information?
I mean, honestly, if you Google my name, I swear to God, my email and cell phone are everywhere out there. It's a blessing and a curse for sure. But my email, it's ckerns@mic.org. So it's not complicated at all. Um, and I answer every email. I listen to every request. I mean, Jacob, you probably know this. We had a couple exhibitors reach out about doing the dealer tech sector. And that's why that exists, is because a couple exhibitors came and said, "Hey, can you do this for us?" And said, "Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea. We can do that." So if there's something that we're not doing or that we can do better, please let us know. I mean, it's that whole adage, if you don't know it's broke, you can't fix it. And I'm not saying that anything's broke by any stretch, but we're going to be in Orlando, so we're kind of returning to our roots where AIMExpo launched in 2013. We're just ahead of Daytona Bike Week and Daytona Supercross, so who knows what that's going to look like. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. I'm looking forward to it. I love Florida. So, I guess on that note, get a hold of Cinnamon and register for the next AIM Expo that's coming up. Check her out at the mic.org and make sure you protect this industry, everybody. And on that note, I'll say bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Cinnamon.
Ciao.
Dealers, get ready to accelerate your sales with Moto Hunt Marketplace. For a limited time, we're offering a free trial to powersports and motorcycle dealers to showcase your inventory where it matters most. Moto Hunt isn't just a platform. With our unparalleled Google-esque search technology, your listings climb to the top of page results, capturing the attention of motivated buyers without the need for a bidding war. We'll send direct, qualified leads straight to your CRM or inbox. Get more visibility on your in-stock units, and convert more sales is what Moto Hunt Marketplace offers. Your inventory deserves the spotlight, and with Moto Hunt, that's exactly where it'll be. Sign up today for free. Visit dealers.motohunt.com/free. That's dealers.motohunt.com/free. That's FREE to claim your free trial today.